Hello, everyone, and welcome to this week's episode of Wednesdays at Noon with Pumpkin Fuzz. And today we're so happy to have one of the organizations that we love that has been really, really close to our hearts at Pumpkin Fuzz, NYSOTA. So we're so happy to have David Malchioni Martinez and Michelle Scanlon, who are the Vice President and Executive Director of NYSOTA with us today. But before we start, I just have a few announcements. This episode will be ASL interpreted for everyone who may need that accommodation. It'll be on our page in a few days. And also, I realized that I did not introduce myself, I don't think. So I'm Shanique, and I'm on team with Pumpkin Fuzz. For everyone who may not know me, yes, that's me. And also, one more thing that I have to say is that we do have a bit of a lag in the comments, but we want to hear from you. If you're out there, talk to us and chat with us and join the conversation today, which I'm really, really excited about. And I hope to hear from you all out there. If you're looking into going into occupational therapy or are already in the field, we want to hear from you, and we want to hear your thoughts about what NYSOTA has so gratefully done so far. So yes, and wear a mask, everyone, please. We're still in the middle of a pandemic, and we need for you to wear a mask. So please, 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 we are begging you, wherever you are, wear a mask. So yeah, we'll start with, tell us a bit about yourselves, Michelle and David, whoever wants to start.
I can start. Thank you so much for having us. We are so excited to be here. We love you guys and are just so glad to have this opportunity. So I am the Executive Director for the New York State Occupational Therapy Association. My background is in marketing and communications and not occupational therapy. I'm the only person on the board who does not have occupational therapy in their background. I've worked in advertising agencies in Manhattan and Chicago for several years before taking time off to raise 3 girls. I have worked with all different types of clients: finance, retail, healthcare, food, beverage, you name it, I've done it. I am really passionate about branding and really using it as a tool for people to get to know us better. So that's how I use it with NYSOTA. I want people to know who we are, what we stand for. I want them to know about our creativity, our accessibility, and our warmth, most of all. And I'm also really passionate about finding new ways to engage with our members and really support them in everything that we do.
I love that. So I'm actually in marketing communications as well. So I feel you on that, Michelle. David, how about you?
Well, thank you again, Shanique, for having us. This is really great. I just love Pumpkin Fuzz. I'm like over the moon about them. So it's like great to be here. Yeah, I'm David Malchioni Martinez. I'm the Vice President of NYSOTA, and I'm a COTA, so a Certified Occupational Therapy Assistant. I've been doing that for about 7 years. And my background before that is in theater. So my master's is actually in applied theater. And so my passion is about infusing theater into OT and seeing how we can make education more accessible through theater, how we can make our profession more accessible through theater, and just really blending the arts and therapy. And occupational therapy it's so great, and it's so amorphous and can be molded and melded to so many different things. And theater is very similar, so they're just kind of like a natural mesh, and it's been really, really great.
It seems like it. Thank you so much, Michelle and David, for sharing a bit about yourself. And David, actually, I know that like you do stand-up comedy, and I just wanted to ask you a bit about that. Like, could you talk a little bit about that and that piece of you?
Sure. So yeah, I call myself a stand-up comedian, even though it's not like what I get paid for. But yeah, I do stand up, and it's just a whole completely different world. It's so difficult, but it's so fun, and it honestly has made me a better therapy practitioner, because like the best comedians are really good at listening and really good at seeing into things, right? So the things that make us laugh the most are the things we're like, oh my God, that is so true. Like, I never thought of it, even though it's right there in front of me, right? And I see a lot of that in OT, where people a lot of times are like, well, have you ever thought about trying it this way or doing something this way? Or what about this piece of your identity? And people are like, oh, I actually never thought of it like that. So when you actually look at them together, they're very similar in the fact that they really get to things that people might not have thought about looking at otherwise. Yeah, so comedy is definitely it's a night owl thing, and OT is more of a daytime thing. So when I switched full time to OT from doing comedy, I had to completely change my sleep schedule.
I love that. Thank you so much for sharing that.
Yeah.
Our first question is actually, what is an occupational therapist? So anyone who might, what is occupational therapy, I guess is the right way to say it. But could you tell us a bit about that? You and Michelle, both guys.
Yeah, so occupational therapy it's a therapeutic discipline, and it's basically looking at someone holistically and seeing all the different roles and occupations that someone engages in. And it's kind of a misnomer because people say, oh, well, I already have a job, so I don't need occupational therapy. But everyone has occupations regardless of employment. And, you know, work is one of the areas of occupation that we have. But it's also taking care of yourself as an occupation. It's really whatever occupies your time throughout the entirety of the day, and sleep and rest is one of the occupations. So, you know, even when you're asleep, you're engaging in an occupation. So OTs really do look at the entire picture. And that's kind of what we do. And we look at really, really tangible, concrete things that people can do to facilitate engaging in occupations better. So, you know, if that's education, what can we do to facilitate you learning better? If it's ADLs or activities of daily living, what can we do to facilitate you taking care of yourself better? And so really anything that you do during the day, an occupational therapy practitioner can engage with you to make really successful.
And actually, thank you so much for clarifying that, David. I know that you are an occupational therapy assistant. Could you tell us the difference between an occupational therapist and an occupational therapist assistant, or OTA for short?
Yes, absolutely. So those are our two of our levels. There is an OTD, which is a doctorate of occupational therapy. And so basically, the OTA, or the occupational therapy assistant, as it is right now, that's an associate's degree. And now we do have dual points of entry. So there are baccalaureate programs that are looking for accreditation, and they're going to get started. So soon there'll be AAS and BS degrees for OTA. And then there's the MS, which is the master's level, which is an OT, or an occupational therapist, OTR, registered occupational therapist. And then there's also going to be the doctorate level as both entry points. And the difference really is in terms of that an OT, an occupational therapist, really does a lot of the evaluation. So if you're someone who should be getting occupational therapy services, the occupational therapist is going to do your evaluation. They're going to look at you and see, okay, these are really the areas of occupation we can work on with you. And in some cases, the OT will then work on treating. And you have established in that evaluation, and in some instances they'll hand that off to the OTA, and the occupational therapy assistant will then do a lot of the treatment and the reevaluation and the discharge planning and all of that. So OTs also, they supervise our notes, so making sure that our notes are, you know, up to standard and that they're following a really set level of professional practice.
I see.
And then, you know, OTs also, they're the ones who can help a lot of OTAs work on some areas of practice. And then OTAs also teach a lot of OTs things. So it's really collaborative. And in some places, there's a really big distinction. And in some places, you can really barely tell the difference. And then there's obviously levels of supervision that we have in terms of,
Absolutely, yeah.
it's called service competency. I won't go into all of service competency, but that basically determines how closely the OT and the OTA work together. And you can have really good service competency where then you get a lot of latitude or a little closer relationship.
Also, as a heads up, guys, we're having some technical difficulties behind the scenes. Usually we can bring up the comments on the screen when people leave comments. Unfortunately, we're having some trouble. So if you see me looking down, I actually have the live stream on my phone and I'm looking at the comments for people who might be watching. So still leave comments for us. I'll check them periodically via my phone if that's okay. But we'll move on to the next question. How many OT specialties are there? OT practitioner specialties?
That's, and that's something that NYSOTA is actually working on right now. So there are several different specialties that are really established. You find occupational therapy in a lot of schools. We work a lot in education. We work a lot in nursing homes. We work a lot in hospitals, in short-term care. Hand therapy is a huge discipline. Mental health is actually the start of OT. That's where we started, was working in mental health.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, the first OTs worked with veterans who at the time it was called shell shock. Now we know it's PTSD or post-traumatic stress disorder. And that was where OT started. And sadly, because of a lot of mental health infrastructure, those places that serve people who need mental health services have gone away a lot. But that is the origins of OT, is mental health. And then NYSOTA's really been working a lot. And Michelle, you can talk a little bit about this. A lot of new initiatives to really broaden what OT is and where OT happens and where we work and what we can do.
It's true. There's emerging practice areas, things like an architecture firm. Architecture firms should have occupational therapists or occupational therapy practitioners on staff so that they can design better, they can be more inclusive. There are yoga places that have occupational therapy as a specialty. There are occupational therapists doing pelvic floor rehabilitation, which is pretty amazing. They're in acute care, so there's on cardiac teams and pulmonary teams and head trauma or spinal cord injuries, stroke rehabilitation. There are, my feeling is that everyone, no matter what's going on, could use a little occupational therapy.
So Michelle, actually, I hear David talking a lot about what NYSOTA is doing. Could you tell us what is NYSOTA? So people may be watching that are not from New York and they might be curious of what NYSOTA is.
Yeah, NYSOTA is the New York State Occupational Therapy Association. So we are the professional association for occupational therapy, the only one in New York State. So if you are an occupational therapy practitioner, an educator, a student of occupational therapy, you could be our member. We also have members that are not in the field per se, but strongly support what we do. So that would be someone who's a care recipient or someone who makes products that occupational therapy practitioners would use. Just anyone who really wants to support us. What we do is we provide direct support to our membership, and we do that through advocacy at the state level. We influence policy and legislation affecting the profession of occupational therapy. We protect practitioners' right to practice, and we also strengthen that ability to practice. And we do that by finding those new emerging practice areas or by putting occupational therapy practitioners into fields where they weren't before because they have so much to offer. And we provide direct support to our members, but we also indirectly provide support to people who are not our members. So for example, if you were an occupational therapy assistant who was working during the time of the pandemic, you were not allowed to do, before the pandemic started, occupational therapy assistants are not allowed to use telehealth as a delivery service method, but we were able to advocate and change that so that the practitioners could do their jobs and treat their students who are no longer in school, and B, help the people, the recipients of the care, help those children continue to get to see their practitioner, their therapist or therapy assistant, because now they're allowed to provide the services in that way. So we do a lot of advocating across the board, so many different areas. We do a lot of education. We educate our membership so that they can continue to grow and develop as practitioners. We can help people find jobs. We help with resources. People call to ask questions about occupational therapy, or am I allowed to do this? Or, what are the laws and the rules for this? So we are just here as a support system and a community. I really do see us as a community for practitioners, educators, students, and even the care recipients.
I agree. I see you guys as that as well, from the outside looking in. And David, could you tell us, how can someone know that they need occupational therapy, and how can they get an occupational therapist?
So that's a really great question. And we like to think that sometimes we're like the best kept secret. And, OT, people who are familiar with OT, either they're OT practitioners or know someone who's an OT practitioner, they'll a lot of times advocate for that. So, they go to the doctor and the doctor says, okay, you have X, right? X diagnosis. We're going to send you to physical therapy. And a lot of times that's really great, but OT can also help you facilitate more of a functional thing. So the distinction is, PT will help you move your elbow joint in the way that is anatomically correct. And then the OT practitioner will say, okay, well, what do you do in your daily life that you need to bend your elbow joint for, right? And so we're going to make sure that even though you're now moving it in a way that is anatomically correct and helpful, how do we make sure that you can now, in your recovery, put on a shirt, make dinner, all of those things that go beyond just the functional anatomical aspect and look at more of a holistic approach is OT. So really anyone can be an OT service recipient, especially in mental health. People are very quick to prescribe counseling or medication, and all those things are a wonderful part of the clinical picture, but OT also serves a really great piece of that picture. Doesn't take up the whole picture, but it's a really great addition to that picture, because we really look at the tangible, physical, practical ways that you can take that recovery and apply it to all the areas of your life that could be affected. So it's kind of a vague answer, but I would really say anyone who's receiving any other service can probably receive OT. And, if after you watch this live, you're interested and you do a little research into what OT is more in depth, and dollars to donuts, you'll want to go to your doctor and get a prescription for OT. And that's part of the question is, yes, you do need a prescription for services a lot of times. There are some private practices that operate where you can go directly to them for services. But for some things, you do need a doctor's prescription. So it kind of depends on what you need.
And that tie-in with mental health is so important, because even if you're in a situation where you don't realize that there's a mental health issue that you want to address, just sometimes by nature of life, if you are unable to, brush your hair or put makeup on or go to the grocery store, if you're limited in things you can do, that does affect your mental health, whether you're realizing it at the time or not. So having that occupational therapy benefits you not just physically to be able to fulfill these areas of living, but also to provide that little bit of mental health that, it's sort of healthier for you mentally, because you're independent and you're accomplishing things that were kind of tripping you up prior to the therapy.
Yeah.
Understood.
And Michelle, that's a really, really good point. And that reminds me that, I know a lot of people, myself included, who have gone to see, counselors and therapists, and what everyone I know says is it's really like you're shopping around. You have to find, a mental health practitioner who really fits you and your style of recovery. And that's different for everyone. So traditional psychotherapy might really work for some people and might not work for others. And I know people who've switched from seeing a traditional psychotherapist to seeing an OT practitioner in terms of specifically for mental health reasons, and to great results, and have really helped them see different sides of their recovery that they might not have seen otherwise. So I think it's always worth at least just one visit, just to see if that style of working with a practitioner is something that speaks to you, because our style is very unique.
And it runs, I would say, the course of a lifespan. You know, whether you're someone who's just learning to hold a pencil and you want to learn to do it properly so that it can affect other areas of your life, or if you're someone who's, you know, much older and wants to age in place, you know, you're not ready to leave your home, you want to live in your apartment, but how can you do it safely? So it really, it just affects the entire lifespan.
And David, how did you choose occupational therapy as a profession? Because I know you weren't here originally, so how did you choose it?
Right. So my mother is actually an occupational therapy assistant, and she was working for years and years as an OTA. And so I was always around it, and I always liked it, but I never really thought it was for me. And then when I was in middle school, I was attacked by a dog, and it attacked my arm. And so I had a lot of nerve damage and muscle damage. And so I went to an OT, I went to a hand specialist, and she was incredible, and she helped me so much. And now my arm has no residual effects. And of course, my mom continued the therapy at home, like pretty aggressively. There was no skipping those exercises in my household. So I had to do it, and it was incredible. And once I really saw that firsthand, it kind of changed my opinion, because I never thought of myself as doing anything therapy related, because I was always the actor in the family, the comedian, the yada yada. And when I really saw the impact it could have on my own life, I realized I wanted to go into it, but I still kind of thought, well, it's still like a very clinical, very, you know, traditional kind of medical, educational framework, and that didn't speak to me. And then I went for an orientation at OTA school, and right away they were like, what are your interests? Who makes you you? How can you infuse that into your practice? And I was like, wait a minute, I get to choose what my practice looks like? And they were like, absolutely, that's what OT is. It's whoever you are should shape your practice. And so I took theater and I took therapy, and I kind of mushed them together, and I realized that it was absolutely the right choice for me.
Actually, David, as I hear you talk, I think we should have you on for a Friday working with kids. So maybe you could do like a theater kind of show for our research. We'll talk about that off camera. But yeah, I was wondering, like, and I just forgot the question that I had, but I had a follow-up question. I'll think about it. Who do you think is best suited to be a occupational therapy practitioner to you?
You know, I used to think it was people who are super creative and super all these things. And the more I've worked in the field, I realized that we have such an incredible group of people working in occupational therapy. I've only ever worked in New York State, so I'm partial to us New Yorkers, but I mean, we've been to national conference, and the trend is the same. Any single person. There are people who are so creative, it blows your mind. And then there are people who are so traditionally smart. They have a million facts and figures, and they have, you know, they can tell you which nerve is deep next to this nerve, and they can name any part of your body off top. And it's incredible that every single person you can imagine, there's an OT who is that person. And so it's not limited to one type of person. It's really everybody, every ability, every race, creed, religion. There's a place for you in OT for sure.
I would say there is a common thread in everyone, and that is there seems to be a sense of inner strength and compassion across the board. Like occupational therapy practitioners have a natural inclination to want people to succeed. They want you to be better at whatever it is, whether it's better, physically or better mentally, or better at achieving your goals and accomplishing a new skill. They want people to succeed. And I see that across the board.
Michelle, that is so true that when you think about it, I mean, I've worked in many, many different practice areas, and, students, they'll want to go to the OT room just to hang out with the OT practitioners. Patients come to the OT gym or the OT room or wherever, just to hang out with the practitioners, because it seems like a lot of times, especially in institutions, which can so often be really oppressive and really hard for people to deal with, that OT is like this little safe space, this calm shore in what is otherwise really, really choppy waters. And that is a through line, Michelle. You're absolutely right that we so often are just people who want people to be the best that they can be and really achieve the best of themselves. And that's so true.
David, to hear you talk about just the way that you all accept each other and the way that occupational therapists are for other people, I just can't help but think about NYSOTA was actually my first conference with Pumpkin Fest when I started working full time. So I just think back to that and I get so excited like every year for us to go. And I was so sad like when this pandemic hit, because I'm like, oh man, like maybe we won't be able to go, but it was so fun and I enjoy it so much to be able to be around occupational therapists all the time. And we actually didn't plan to ask this question, but Michelle, what actually goes into planning that conference? Because I know you're a big piece of that, and just hearing about everything that occupational therapists are doing and can do. How does planning the conference, how does that look? Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, we start every year with, kind of just, is there going to be a theme just overall? But then I guess the most important piece is when we reach out and we ask for speakers, we put out a call for papers and we see what comes in. And we find ourselves blown away every year. I mean, this will be my third conference this year. So I've only been with NYSOTA for 2 years. But in those 2 years, we've really been blown away by the quality and the content that we're getting. There are people out there doing unbelievable things. So it's really exciting to us to get to hear new emerging areas of practice, new areas of treatments that people are working in, new resources that they've uncovered, new inventions. And we love that because it's really a time for us to showcase the best of the best and to kind of educate each other. And there's a real sense of connection. So we also, for conference, try to build in as many opportunities as possible to bring the group together for brainstorming sessions, for celebrating each other's achievements, just really a sense of community. And I feel like we've done a pretty good job of that in the last 2 years.
People have given
feedback.
Yeah, I agree. And what's been the most surprising piece of both of you's career? David, you can start. What's been the most surprising thing for you?
Sorry, I was muted. I was sipping coffee.
Okay, no worries.
Most surprising part of my career, I think, is really having to just come to terms with the fact that you really cannot make assumptions about people, and that, when you see a diagnosis on paper or you see someone, they've had a stroke, they are coming to you because that every single person is so unbelievable. Did I freeze?
You did.
For a bit, but I think you're back.
That, It's just that every person is so unbelievably unique, and that even when you get a diagnosis, that diagnosis is so unique to that person that and that's also the beauty of OT, is that when you get in that room with that person or you meet that person for the first time, you start to see all the different ways that a person's identity colors who they are, and their experiences color who they are, and how all of those things impact how they interact with the world and how their occupations have taken shape. And the most surprising thing is just that you really can never have the same person twice. Even if that person comes back to you, they've changed. Just by being out in the world, they've changed. And it's every day you take it as a new day, and you really just have to come prepared to take all your clinical experience and all that stuff and apply it, but at the same time just be really open to the fact that it's a beautiful tapestry. It really is, the world.
I love that, David. I really actually enjoyed that response. I think it's been my favorite so far. But I agree. Even though I'm not an occupational therapist, I can imagine that it would be rewarding, but also overwhelming to just see how fast and how easily people change by experiences. So I love that. And how about you, Michelle? I know you're in a different space than David is, but what's the most surprising piece of your career?
I would say that I'm surprised a couple of things. One is I'm surprised at where I am today, because I did take 17 years off from working. So I wasn't really sure. I knew that eventually I'd go back to doing something as the kids got older. I don't think I really expected to take that much time off. And I didn't know what I would end up going back to. So this opportunity was, when it was presented to me, I took it right away. It was exciting. I don't even think I realized the challenges that lay ahead. I don't think that the board at the time realized what the challenges were. But there were an incredible number of challenges. The organization was struggling a little bit financially. The membership numbers were declining. And so I guess I've been surprised at how much we've accomplished in 2 years. And I'm also pleasantly surprised about how close and collaborative the board is. But we still feel incredibly connected. It's like a family. I mean, I literally hang up when I'm on the phone with people. I say I love you to the people that I work with on a regular basis, and I really mean it. And so I'm surprised sometimes when I think about, wow, I don't think other people are having this experience at their job. It's challenging, it's difficult, it's a lot of hours, but I absolutely love it. And I'm just surprised by how excited other people are about participating in what we're doing and joining our community and being a part of what we do.
I love that. And could you guys tell me, so I'm seeing a lot of things on social media because Pumpkin Fest works so closely with occupational therapy and occupational therapists. A lot of you are adapting to the current new normal. How does an OT's ability to MacGyver help with a current new normal? I guess you can speak to that, David, first.
I think a lot of it has to do with the fact that I think we have a propensity towards being very community oriented. So when this first happened, NYSOTA immediately mobilized to become a resource for people. And I was really pleasantly surprised how many people were willing to come forward and say, look, I'm honestly having this issue. How can I solve it? And that there were, a ton of practitioners ready to say, look, I have this little piece of advice. And when we took all those little pieces of advice, right, we created something that really helped people. And so I think it was the fact that we look at each other as a real community and we say, I have this little piece of information, I have this little piece of knowledge. How can we take all of that and pool it into a place that can benefit everyone? And it was so refreshing to see how quickly and selflessly everyone did that. And so I think it is part of that MacGyver adaptability where we were like, look, part of that adaptability is recognizing that you don't have all the answers. And we were like, each of us has a little answer. Let's adapt to that and make something. And we did. And a lot of that has to do with, you know, Michelle and what we do at NYSOTA.
I love that. And how
I was just going to add to that and say that OTs are built for this. You know, I feel like we've been just amazingly successful through the pandemic in reaching people and connecting the people and networking and giving everyone a sense of support and comfort. And I feel like it's because of who they are as practitioners. This is what they're built for. They're built for change. They're built for problem solving. They're built for critical thinking. This is what they do.
Literally, like all of the things that I see on social media as Pumpkin Fud's social media person, I literally see so many occupational therapists like using their homes as their office and going out and buying things and putting full sessions on Instagram. Like I've never seen something like it ever in my life. Like it's super helpful, I'm sure, to parents out there whose children are missing occupational therapy right now. Maybe you might be going through telehealth, but might be struggling in that way. And I would imagine that a lot of these things that are on social media now, I don't think occupational therapists realize how helpful they are being by putting this stuff on a free platform like Instagram. And that brings me to my next question. What new ideas do you see for NYSOTA in terms of the pandemic?
Well, one of the things that we've been doing is we've created a Dessert and Dialogue webinar series. So every 2 weeks on a Tuesday night at 7, we have a guest speaker who is an occupational therapy practitioner in New York State. One of the criteria is that they must be really passionate about their topic. And so we've had people present on a variety of topics. We had someone presented on Tai Chi. We had David did a session on incorporating some theater skills when you're doing occupational therapy practice. Our August 4th is going to be our next one, where we are actually going to have someone on who's a pediatric occupational therapist who's going to share some of her ideas for how you can engage with parents and get them more involved and how to give them some support tools to help, make these teletherapy sessions go even better. So we're definitely doing more virtual programming, which has enabled us in a really positive way to reach more people in the state at one time than we normally would. Normally we'd have a live event, maybe 20 people would come.
I get you guys emailed, and I saw that you're having something today, and I think that right now, so tonight, I believe. And could you tell us a bit about that? So for anyone who might want to attend or might be watching, what is it going to be about?
It's a free session, and it's going to be a diversity, equity, and inclusion roundtable. With the state of things in our country at the moment, we took one of the things that we're pretty good at is taking a really hard look at ourselves. What's happening in the world, and what's our role. And we thought about, what our role could be and how we could lead change. And one of the things that we came up with was to have a roundtable discussion where we invite people and we do not charge them to come. They come to the webinar, and it's a chance for us to explore some of the issues facing the profession of occupational therapy and brainstorm some ideas for how we could correct some of the issues, or at least move towards change. So whether that's, making education more equitable, making it more inclusive, making this a profession that really addresses the needs of every single person that wants to be involved. So we are going to be doing that tonight at 7. If you go to our website, in our calendar, you can find the link to join. And we would love people to participate in that, because I think it's important to hear all of the voices and come together as a group to work through the solutions.
I love that. And you see the website is right there on the screen for anyone who might want to go and visit and partake in this really, really, really important conversation. And I really recommend it. I encourage it. If you're out there and if you watch the recording, go and do that. And if they can't catch it live, Michelle, is there a way that they might be able to watch it afterwards? Or
We've decided not to record this session because of the sensitive nature of the topic. We want people to feel very comfortable sharing whatever they want and knowing that it's not going to end up on YouTube somewhere down the road. We just want people to feel like they're in a very safe place. So this time we're not going to do that.
Okay, that's totally understood. And actually, a great segue into the next question, and I think the last question that I have is, what are some goals that you guys see for NYSOTA going forward?
Yeah.
Well, do you want to go first, David?
Sure. There's a couple goals. One goal is to take one of the initiatives I'm really spearheading is we're creating regional communities, which basically we're looking at. New York is such a big state, and one of the great things about New York is that you drive 2 hours in any direction and you're in a different world. And that's what makes New York so great. And we realized that we really want to build community in those spaces to find what issues and successes those regions are really having. So we decided to build regional communities. There's going to be 10 of them all throughout the state to really build community, find out what really great things each region is working on and doing, and what challenges they're experiencing that might be specific to their location. And another piece of that is really looking at disparities in, our profession in general. And this kind of ties into, the roundtable we're having tonight is looking at, how do we make our profession more racially equitable? How do we make sure that we're a space that every race, religion, creed, ethnicity feels comfortable coming to and going to school? Does everybody feel comfortable coming into an OTA program or an OT program? Does everyone feel that the services they receive are equitable and that they have access to the same level of service as somebody else? And we already know the answer to that is no. So that's part of this roundtable, is to see what we can do that's specific to OT, because there's so many resources out there. But again, OT is such a specific kind of entity that we really want OTs to figure out what this problem is. So really those two things are the things that are on my mind the most right now. And I think we're on the right track for those things.
I would add to that, some of our short-term goals are, continuing to grow our membership. We are only as loud as the number of members we have. And so when we want to advocate for the profession or do something legislatively or make some big changes, we need to have the support of membership behind us. And our membership includes the practitioners, educators, and students, as well as people in the community like parents or caregivers. So we would love to see those numbers grow so that we would have a little bit more weight up in Albany. We also are going to continue to find new ways to support our membership, new resources, new continuing education. And if you aren't a practitioner, so if you're listening and you're a parent perhaps, one of the things that we offer is resources for parents. So we have a members only section on our website. There is an associate membership that would cover people who are not practitioners, and they could choose that membership, become a member. That makes their voice heard. It counts them in our advocacy efforts up in Albany. And then there's resources. For $8, they could attend some of our dessert and dialogue sessions that would be appropriate to them if they want to learn more about hand therapy or learn more about pediatric therapy and their role in it, sensory activities, free resources. And we do have on the members only page a list of resources that it's designed for practitioners to use when working with their families. They can print this list of resources out and share it. But it's great for parents as well to just go in directly and see this list of, incredible occupational therapy blogs, websites, and tools that they can.
I love that.
And I was just going to add one more thing. I'm sorry. My ultimate goal is for everyone to know that occupational therapy is the service of the future, that everyone can use occupational therapy. And it's the time is now for people to know what these unbelievable practitioners do and how it can enhance the lives of everyone.
Yes, amen to that, Michelle. I love that ending message. I really, really, really enjoyed this conversation. And before we go, we're about out of time, but I want to say if someone wants to contact you, I know we're going to pull up your emails right here on the screen. If they want to reach out for any questions, this is for David. This is his email. And if you wanted to reach out to Michelle for any questions about NYSOTA or membership or anything, this is her email. And we recommend and encourage, if you're out there and if you watch this, please get involved with NYSOTA. They're amazing, to the brands they work with, the other organizations, to just all of the people that they work with. I have had the chance to work very closely with you guys through Pumpkin Fudge, and it's been such a joy. I just really, really am so happy that you both could join us today. And I also want to take this time to say hi and just give a quick shout out to Flo, which is the president of NYSOTA, who was supposed to join us today but could not because of an emergency that came up. But hi to Flo, and if you watch this, we love you, and yeah, we're with you. And also hi to Lisa. Lisa is on vacation right now, but she wished that she could have joined us. So yeah, before we go, would you guys have anything that you want to say or anything to close?
I just want people to reach out with anything. No question is too small. We're here to support people. That's what we do, and that's our goal. And the more people we have, the richer our community and the more successful we'll be.
Yes, I love that. David, you're muted. I'm sorry.
Every time. Just thank you so much for having us, giving us a chance to talk about all the things we're working on, all the things we're so passionate about. And just to echo what Michelle said about, we really are so excited and passionate about what we do that we love hearing from people and we love having more voices in the mix. So we love finding new ways to do what we love and support people and advocate for occupational therapy. And so just thank you.
Amazing. Of course. And I hope that everyone enjoyed this. And if you watch this back, make sure you join us on Friday. We'll have Mrs. Ashley coming back for another special story time that she made for us. So tune in on Friday at 4 p.m. if you have kids. And if you are a parent and want to join, we welcome parents and kids of any age. And we really want you to come and check us out, facebook.com/pumpkinfudge at 4 p.m. Eastern time. So yeah, tune in. Bye.
Thank you so much for having us. We love you guys.
Thank you. We love you guys.